Hey, and welcome back, guys. I am determined to get this interview done. Facebook, I am determined to get this interview done. I am. And welcome to another episode of Speak Easy. So we've been trying to have this conversation about the power of the male voice when it comes to speakers and authors and writers, and I keep getting knocked out. I keep all types of stuff. Oh, it's bananas. But we are pressing forward. Hey, Verilyn. Hey, Shalonda. I am going to invite Leroy back to the conversation. For those of you that missed the earlier conversations, you definitely want to go back and catch the replays. Definitely talked about some important pieces of the puzzle when it comes to the male voice. And I see Leroy coming in. So Leroy, if you can just leave a comment and then I will add you. There you are. Great. So we shall see. I am speaking. This is going to work.
Yeah, I know, right?
This is going to work. I refuse.
I don't know what's going on.
Now I can't hear you again. Oh my goodness.
Are you sure?
This is going to work. Oh. Go ahead out, Leroy, and I'll bring you back in.
All right.
Guys, we are going to make this happen. We're going to have this conversation today. Somebody needs this conversation. So if you're joining us live or even via the replay, share out the broadcast because somebody is going to need this conversation. Hey, Naomi, somebody needs this conversation. And that is probably why we are I'm guaranteeing that is why we're having so much difficulty because somebody needs this conversation. We're going to get it out there. We are determined that we will not quit. We will not give up on this. We will get this out here. That part. Oh my goodness. What a day, guys. It's been amazing. But for those of you joining in, thank you so much. We always appreciate you guys. And don't forget, even if you're catching via the replay, man.
Okay.
It is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. This has been bananas. Oh my goodness. It's crazy. So, first I want to say thank you for pushing through all of the technical difficulties today. Thank you for pushing through. Also, it's monumental for me because you are my first male guest that has come on that is not an author, but that is a writer.
Really?
And, yes. And it's funny because I talked about it earlier when I went live, and I said, for me, the power behind the male voice, the power within it and the power behind it is something amazing. And I think a lot of times we don't really give it the credit that it's due because of the past, because of so many things that have gone on, because let's be honest, a lot of times, even though you'll see a young man walking down the street with his pants down, his behind showing, you don't really think that he has something powerful to say. But Absolutely. When they open their mouths, sometimes you can be blown away. So I
Absolutely. You
always
can't
love.
get you can't get caught up in the package. You know what I'm saying? You can't get caught up in the package, or what I say. You can't get caught up in the cover because the cover can be deceiving to you sometimes. You know.
Yes, yes, indeed. And how about this? Oh, in keeping with that, the cover is meant to catch your attention sometimes.
hmm Absolutely, absolutely,
Sometimes that's
absolutely.
merely what it's supposed to do.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. So, but it
And
is
so
great. It is great to be here with you.
I am super excited to have you on. So Leroy actually does a lot in publication. He does a lot with online magazines and different things of that nature. And so coming from that perspective, was that something that you always were interested in when it comes to being a writer? Were you someone that started out with just kind of dibbling and dabbling with stories? Like, how did this come about?
No, here's the thing. I kind of writing is something I do a little bit of, because what I do, being an author, I've actually written several books, and then out of writing the books, I've taken a little step further and partnered with several magazines, kind of freelance writing with a couple of magazines that kind of tie in to what kind of things that I've either, talk about with my books or things that my company kind of fall under and work with, such as entrepreneurship, such as like we talked about men of faith, and that because one of them is a magazine for men, about men and issues that men deal with. So with that, and then there's a couple of entrepreneurship magazines that I write for too. So it ties. I tied it all into that.
And that's amazing because when we think about, again, the male voice, and let's be honest, conversations aren't being had. And
Absolutely.
so,
Well, I'm gonna say I think there are conversations that I'll say it like this: there are conversations that are going on, but they aren't readily talked about with about what men are doing, because there's a lot of good stuff that some positive men are doing, but it doesn't get talked about as much as it should be and needs to be and put out there. I'll say it like that. So conversations are being had. Needs to be more conversations going on, because it's some serious issues out here that men are dealing with and have to deal with and have to talk about and need to talk about.
definitely. And so, come on, you got to give it to us.
You kind of freezing up. Uh-oh.
Oh,
No, I
sorry
couldn't
about
hear
that.
you.
So I said,
You're
what's one
freezing.
of those topics that isn't being discussed that really needs to be discussed?
Is what again?
One of the topics that's not being discussed that you feel as though really needs to be
Uh-huh.
discussed.
Well, honestly, I think one of the main major topics to me is manhood and understanding what manhood is, because so many men have been miseducated on what manhood is and what it is to be a man, because many of us have grown up without having that positive male figure in our lives, and even if we may have had that positive male figure, sometimes we've been mistaught about what it is, the things that men are supposed to do, how men are supposed to act, things that men are supposed to be, the responsibilities that you have as a man, how you're supposed to conduct yourself as a man, all of those things. So to me, that's the major thing, because I think that's the foundation of all of it. Because if you're taught what manhood, the true definition and understanding of what manhood is, everything else kind of grows from that and comes out of that, because you have that foundation to be able to build everything else off of.
Definitely. And so it's interesting that you said that, because as a single mother, something that
Mm-hmm.
I pride myself on, that I was adamant about having was some strong male mentors for my children, because I felt like even though they still have a conversation, they still have a relationship with their father, I needed that for them. They needed to see the strength of a man. They needed to see the power that a man could have and what they could do, and the accomplishments, being being debt free, to owning your own home, to just any number of things, being someone who had been in the service or someone who had graduated from college, just being able to see all of those things, it meant a lot for me. But I know that that's not everybody's.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the thing, because I know with me, my parents were divorced when since I was 10 years old, and my father was a part of my life, but he wasn't there in my life all, kind of, like I say always, and I told him, I used to tell him this as well. He was in my life, but he wasn't in there as much as I felt I needed him to be there. And it was a thing just like you with your kids. My mother made it a point to make sure that there were positive male figures in my life, in addition to my father, so that I had that to be able to go from and to be able to build from. And I've been blessed that way. And I tried to do the same thing for that generation that's behind us, because it was taught to me, and it's so crucial. And as you and I both know, it's something that's sorely needed in this day and time. And that would be the second thing after manhood, understanding manhood, is mentorship and teaching that generation that's behind us the correct things that they need to know. And that's what's not really going on. That's the conversation that isn't going on enough. That's the one that's not going on enough around here today in this day and time. And it needs to be done quick, fast, in a hurry. Because you have a generation that's behind us. And when you look at that generation, and when I say that generation, I'm talking 30 and under, anywhere from 30 down to 15, which is going to be that generation that will become the workforce. They're going to become where we are now. They're going to be us in years, and then we become what our parents are, and they're going to have to take care of us as the older. So you got to be, folks better start thinking, hey, when I get to that age where I'm going to need someone to be able to take care of me, because it's the cycle of life. That it's the natural cycle of life. I've seen my parents go through it with taking care of their parents. It's just a cycle that we go through. So we have to understand that now is the time that you do that educating, the time that you do the pouring into, to them, so that they understand when they step in to those positions that they're ready for it. And a lot of them haven't been prepared for it and aren't being prepared for it, unfortunately.
Now, when you are writing, I know that you said that you talked about, you writing about the magazine for men, and then you doing things for about entrepreneurship. How does your past influence how you write or what you write? Is that solely what you use to write, or is it just something that you've kind of buried and put away? It's not really affecting how you write. What's the connection?
Wow, no, it has everything to do with what I write. Truly, it truly has. And I'll just give you an example, a couple of examples. I write poetry as well. And I wrote poetry. I've been writing poetry since I was in college, just to kind of write what was in my head, getting what was in my head out. And I would write about different things, whether it was my experiences, whether it was someone that I knew experienced, and then even some things that I just felt so passionate about. So that came from that perspective. As far as entrepreneurship, that came from me being in corporate America, seeing how leadership was, seeing how you had folks who were in positions that did not belong in those positions, and seeing that and understanding that how companies were being run into the ground because they had people in the wrong positions and didn't understand what leadership was, didn't understand what the needs of their company was, or they were wasting money. And that's where one of the books came from, because I saw so much money that was being wasted by corporate 500 companies. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. These folks they didn't have any organization. They didn't have any kind of procedures in place, those practices and procedures in place, all of those things to make the company run more efficiently. So I was like, there's got to be, what in the world is going on with these folks? So it came from that perspective, what I learned in college, even my major in college, which was hotel restaurant management, the school that I went to, our major, our dean, and this was one of the things why I'm glad I gravitated to this major in hotel restaurant management, because they made it a point of emphasizing certain things to us. They instilled in us certain, if you want to call it, certain morals, certain procedures, certain concepts that you took, that I still to this day use. And if you were to ask some of my classmates at the time that were in our department, and I always talk about this, whether it's I usually try and find some kind of way to put it in there, but I usually talk about the bell curve, because this was the one thing that our dean, he instilled in us, was this bell curve. And the thing about the bell curve is you always wanted to be at mainly he was talking about business, but even in your everyday life, you should apply it as well. You can apply it, but you should always be in front of the bell curve. And what that is you're not just thinking about today. You're not just thinking about, you're thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about 5 years from now. You're thinking about 10 years from now. That way you're always in front of technology. You're always on the forefront of things that are going on. And you're never caught above at the top of the bell curve, which is where most people are. That's where the average person is. And then you have those that are behind the bell curve, which are those that just aren't thinking about today. They're thinking about yesterday. They're still stuck in yesterday. They're not moving. They're not progressing. So it was always instilled in us that you always had that bell curve mindset where you always want to be in front. So I've taken those lessons, that I've gotten and apply them and put them into the books that I've written, even the articles that I've written for the magazines, all of that stuff, and even what I've learned from my pastor, and the things that I've learned from, learn from his sermons, just learn from him speaking, all of those things. So it's been a compilation of things, and always trying to apply it.
You just said the magic word, the magic A word. Apply it.
Exactly. It does you no good to have it, not use it, right?
You can be taught, but if you're not applying it, it doesn't mean anything. And it's so interesting that you would say that you started writing in college. Woo, college years. Yeah, there's a lot to write about.
Yeah. And like I said, it was just a hobby. It was something that I just didn't think anything of it then, and it didn't come to fruition as far as the books and stuff like that until later on, when I started to show the work to some friends and stuff like that, and they were like, "Well, you should put this in a book." And I'm like, I didn't know the first thing about writing a book, didn't know anything about putting stuff together, but that seed was planted, and then I took myself and tried to learn what needed to be done in order to be able to do it. So starting to, I studied, did my research, did my homework, did the work to try and find out what I needed to do, how it needed to be done, and started to put some things together, and was able to do that and get it into book form. And it's funny with the poetry. It turned out that because at first I didn't think I had enough. I was like, I don't have enough. But the more I wrote, I found out the more I had to say with it. So it was just really nothing but, just nothing but God working with me, because I told him, I'm like, if you want this done, you're going to have to give me what I need in order to be able to do it. And it started flowing from there.
I can definitely understand that. I know with my first book, it was a struggle, because I had one idea in my head, and that
I
old
know.
saying, try, want to hear God laugh? Tell him what your plan is.
Exactly. You got that. You got that right. Exactly.
Tell him what your plan is. And so it turned into something even more amazing than what I could think about at the time. Of course, his plans, not our plans. And I look back on it and I said, oh my goodness, wow, he took a seed and made a harvest that is going to feed my children for years and years and years to come. And, something that I always talk about is building that legacy. I said, for me personally, I want to be able to say that I published 100 books, not just to be able to say, I published 100 books, but to be able to say that I published 100 books. And if each of those books touches one person, then that's 100 lives that I changed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
100 lives that I changed. So that's an extreme for me, but I know that it's doable. What has been an extreme for you when it comes to writing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what has been extreme for you? Is it extreme for you to just sit down, like you say in your mind, okay, I'm gonna write a book, and then to just sit down and write it out? Is that extreme? Or some of the topics, like what has been extreme in your process so far?
Well, I guess I don't know if anything's been extreme in my process, because I know now I'll tell you like this. I guess when now some of the things that I've written have been extreme, like as far as my poetry, and I've had things that just would not let me go. If you know what I mean. Those who are writers kind of understand that something, it just won't let you go until you write it. Because I lie to you not, one of the poems that I wrote, it's a poem, and I swear it's a praise and worship song too, and it's just something that I believe just needs to be is purpose to be a song. And I lie to you not, I had a dream one night about this particular poem that I wrote. And you know how you wake up and you think you're gonna go back to sleep. This thing would not let me go until I got up and had to literally write it that early morning. It would not let me go until I was finished with it, because sometimes we'll dream about something, but then we forget about it. But this particular time, it was not going to let me go. It was not going to be finished until I wrote it that night. It needed to be written that night, and it. I mean, those are some of the extreme things that have happened to me. And then the only other things, as far as if you want to talk about entrepreneurship and things like that, the extreme is just believing and seeing the products and services that have come from what I've from what I'm doing, and where I've grown. I mean, because if you'd have asked me years ago, yes, I've always had the entrepreneurship mindset, because that's what my mother has instilled in me was, you be you, and don't, you don't have to, so that you don't have to answer someone. I've never felt like I fit into corporate America. It was just, it wasn't me. It just was not me. I was going to get the lessons, learn what I needed to learn, but I always felt like I did not belong there. And especially with my mindset, I'm an individual. So I think like me. I'm not there just to be answering to somebody. I'm not going to be a yes person. If I don't agree with something, I'm going to tell you I don't agree with it. I'm going to give you some plausible alternatives to what we may be talking about. And folks don't necessarily like that all the time. When you have somebody that can think on their own, that has a mind of their own, it isn't used to going along just to get along. That's never been me, so
yeah,
so
that rebel, that's what that was. He was a rebel.
Yeah, when you deal with those things, it's that's what you kind of get. So being if you'd have asked me, would I be doing this as far as being a publisher, as far as being a publisher, being a business consultant, I'd have said, nah, I don't know where you getting that. I don't know where you getting that from. But, but I knew it would be something, and it's just grown into something that I'm loving, that I'm enjoying. Of course, it has its ups and downs, it has its struggles, and all of those things. But like I told my buddy when we were working in the hospitality industry, I said, if I'm gonna kill myself, I'm gonna kill myself for myself, not somebody else.
Come on.
So
and that kind of with my children, and I sat down with them one day earlier this year, and I said, I showed them a piece of paper, and I said, this is how much I make for the company that I work for. Mm-hmm. And I get maybe 10% of that. And they looked at me and they did a Medea moment and started calculating stuff and going, but you go to work and full time and you got to miss our activities and you're doing all, well, that don't make sense. I said, no, no, it doesn't make sense. That doesn't. I said, but if I could make that same amount for our family, that amount stays for our family. That amount stays in building for you guys' future and your children's future. So what say you? Now, this is for teenagers.
Okay.
Let's move. Let's do what we got to do. And it was a few months later that I was able to leave my job because I've been working on the entrepreneurship journey. Like, this is year number 3 going into year number 4. I had already been working on this piece, but that was a serious moment when you look at the numbers.
Absolutely. I know it's I know it really is. It's just this journey is something that you can't explain it to anybody, and not everybody's going to get it. Everybody's not going to understand. Some are, some will, some won't, some do, some don't, and that's how you have to approach it too. Because it is. It is certainly not easy, and not for everybody either. So
it's not. So Lita says, hi, Leroy. Faye said, true. Hey, Janine. Hey, Jeffrey. Hey, Richmond. I saw Elizabeth come in. How are you guys doing? Thank you guys for sharing out the broadcast. It has been a phenomenal conversation, and we're not done. We're just halfway through. This is the Speak Easy podcast. I am your host, Altovise Pelzer, the voice coach, not a voice coach, but the voice coach, professional speaker, certified life coach, and Amazon bestselling author. And we have the amazing Leroy Mckenzie Jr. here, and we have been pushing and fighting through to get this interview done.
I know, right? I don't know what Facebook is doing today, like you said, but the devil is a liar today.
Yeah, we pushed past everything today to get this interview done. We was getting this interview done. But it's been a great conversation, and conversation started out with the whole idea of the power of the male voice and, the lack of the male voice in certain areas, the lack of attention to the male voice in certain areas. And, what that has done when it comes, from the perspective of a speaker or an author. Now, something that I always ask all my guests when they come on is, when you did your first book, what was a blunder that you had? So, for instance, what was something that you thought you had it all together and it was like, nope, didn't do that right?
Well, let me tell you, I've had plenty of blunders, but here's one for you, and it was something very simple, but it was something that when you don't, as my mother says, when you don't know, you don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. So I wrote this. It wasn't the first book. It wasn't a book of poetry, but it was the first business book.
Right.
I did it in a font 10. Yeah. Because I was trying to make the book smaller, and it was already 250 something pages. So I was like, okay, well, if I make the font a little smaller, I can get it big. think I can get more inside the book. I lied to you not. It was a font 10. And I remember having somebody look, they bought the book and were reading it, but they were like, she was like, I can't read, the print is so small.
Like, I can't read
So
this.
I was like, I didn't know that the font size should be 12. A standard print font size is 12. So, but I didn't know. I'm like, hey, I just need to get it smaller. I mean, I need to get all of this in under 250 pages. So this is what I'm gonna do. So that was my big blunder as far as, yeah. So any authors out there, aspiring authors, please, font 12. Start there. You can get bigger. You can get bigger than 12 if you want to. But don't go below, please.
But don't go below 12.
Don't go below 12. That's what I'm going to tell you. That was probably the biggest blunder I believe I've made in writing. That was the biggest one. Now, the biggest lesson that I learned was actually in understanding when you print color paper versus regular paper. And I had my when I went to go print my book, the Young and Gifted book, because I had 21 entrepreneurs that were under the age of 40, and I wanted their pictures at the beginning of each chapter, right? So when I went to the printer, he he told me what the price would be with the different colors, having to use that color paper, and I was like, ooh. So I said, okay. And he told me that price, but then he did something that he did not have to do. And I'm forever grateful for him, because he took me on, and his name is Mr. Coates, and he owns it was a black owned printer. It's a black owned printer here in Baltimore. And he explained to me, he said, here's what we can do. He actually gave me an idea. He said, well, since you want to cut cost, he said, what we can do, we can take the pictures, we can put them in the back of the book, and they'll correspond to each chapter and each more that you're following, and you're using 2 pages versus 20 pages, because you had to have one that bigger than each page, which significantly cut my cost down. So that was something that I learned. That was the first lesson that I learned as far as the difference between regular paper and color paper. But he didn't have to do that. And then he even took it further, and he walked me through his the company. He walked me into the back where they actually do the printing, showed me the printing machines that they use, told me to talk to me about the whole printing process, so that I understood what goes on. Because I then took that, and when I have other authors that I'm publishing, I can explain to them the printing process, what goes on, the font size, all of those things. I'm able to difference between the color, the color paper and the regular paper, all of those things that I learned, because I had he didn't have to, but when he did, I started to ask questions, so that I could understand it. And now somebody else doesn't have to bump their head like I did, because I've already done that for them, and they can learn from that. So that's probably the biggest lesson that I learned in the publishing and printing. And I'm forever grateful for Mr. Coates for doing that for me, and taking that, because he didn't have to do it. He didn't have to do that at all.
I appreciate that. I love that. And you always can tell somebody who's passionate about their craft, because they're eager to teach somebody else.
Yep. Absolutely.
Eager.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So I love
that's what I call the bumping your head against the wall. That experience, that between the font 10 and then the great lesson of understanding the color, and there's a significant difference between printing that regular paper and then having to use that color paper. That price goes that price gap is
yes, it
yeah,
does.
it's really high. And it's just things that I've learned because of, when you get into pictures, you talk about resolution, it having to be at the right resolution. Those are things that I've learned along the way, and I'm still learning about that. And I think just talking with different photographers so that you understand, because just because a picture is taken doesn't mean that it's at the right resolution.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. You had that experience too. You had that experience.
I do a lot with speakers, and I do telesummits, and I'm always engaging with speakers for live events and for telesummits and things like that. And when you tell people to turn in a headshot.
Yep. Absolutely. They just think it's just a headshot. Oh, I just go get a picture and send it.
Take a picture and send it to you.
Yep. Absolutely. Because trust me, when you get it to the printer, they're gonna tell you can't use it.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. So those of you that have followed the Speakeasy podcast for any number of time, you've heard me say at least once that one of my major blunders was during my third book. And mind you, and this was book number 3. This wasn't book number 1 or 2. This is book number 3. I thought I had it. I just knew I was the bee's knees. And so I decided I was going to do pre-orders for my book.
Okay.
Great. I uploaded the cover and I uploaded the synopsis because I felt like, okay, well, I don't need to have the book uploaded just yet. I do that the day before the book comes out. Amazon sends anybody who pre-orders the book, they send it to them the day before the book comes out. So everybody got the cover and the synopsis.
Wow.
Lost it. I was like, oh my God, I feel like such a con artist. Oh my goodness, I was so embarrassed. I contacted everybody I could contact. I reached out to everybody I could reach out to. And it was like I learned along the way because
absolutely.
What I did learn, I've been able to teach my clients. So no. Wait till the last minute to upload the actual book if you're going to do it that way. We don't wait till the last minute. No, that needs to be uploaded at least a few days before. And then not only that, but there's things that you aren't told as a reader or a writer.
Right.
When it comes to your ebooks. And there's if you go on Amazon, there's like a little switch or a button that you have to push. So if your authors ever update their book, you get the updated version of it automatically. Nobody ever said that. That's that fine print stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and these are little things that folks aren't privy to, because some of them a lot of times are either first-time authors, and then even when we do this, we don't do our research. Like, had I done my research back then as far as that, then I would have known about the font size. I would have, and honestly, I hadn't talked to other authors about them writing at that time. Because had I sat under somebody, had I talked to somebody, I probably wouldn't have bumped my head because there's somebody that was before then. But honestly, I think I probably wouldn't have gotten the lesson. And I would have gotten the lesson, but maybe not really understood it had I not gone through it myself. And it was something that I think always believe that there's a reason for everything. So there's a reason why I had to go through it. Because when you experience something, it's different than when somebody can just tells you about it. When they tell you about those things. So, so I'm always thankful for those experiences, and like I said, I use that to try and help others to not have to go through what what I went through, so that they don't have. It's just like a parent. You don't want your kids to have to go through all of the things that you went through. But as parents, when you try to tell your kids something, what they do, they want to do their own thing, or they think they know more. And then what we do, we wind up telling my parents, you was right about that, wasn't you?
Come back with that conversation. So remember when we talked about
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
Levita
So
said, wow, these are good lessons. I am working on my project. Thank you. Hey,
yes.
Dana, Sandy. And so it's an interesting experience when you think
Mhm.
about the blunders along the way, when you think about the lessons learned and how we're able to take what we've learned and teach it to somebody else. Something
Absolutely.
that, something that for me as an introvert,
Mhm.
I did a ton of research, but I did research like online, like Google was my best friend. I didn't talk. I didn't talk to anybody about it. Google
uh,
was I mean, you can find everything through Google and YouTube. I am a firm believer. Google, YouTube, and Pinterest. You can find everything in the world.
that you need.
But it's a different experience when you talk to somebody who's been where you're trying to go.
Absolutely, absolutely, and even I even found too with the things when I'm doing the research, in addition to the now the YouTube, Google, folks still, to me, they still sleep on the library, because librarians know a whole lot of stuff. And if you talk with them, they can tell you about certain books and certain topics, and just things. They were a really great help for me, because I'm an advocate for going to the
Mm-hmm.
library, because, like you said, Google can tell you something, but there's nothing like having that individual, that person that can actually, that you can speak with, that can give you something that you're not going to get from Google, that you're not going to get from
And
from YouTube and everything like that.
woo, through and through. And I have to say that I even had an experience where I asked somebody about, and I think I only had one person that I asked because they had a couple books published, and I was like, "Well, how did you publish your first book?"
Uh-huh.
And the response was, "I went to work, saved up my money, and paid for publishing." And I said, "Oh, okay."
Right, right, right.
It
Yes,
completely turned me off. But it's funny that you would suggest the library for two things. For one, first, I'm always telling people, if you're an author, you're an entrepreneur. And if you're not thinking
absolutely,
entrepreneur mindset, you're already losing. As a speaker,
absolutely.
you're an entrepreneur. You still got to
Yep.
speak and have that same mindset. And the library has so many
Absolutely.
free resources. People were always asking me, oh, about a business plan. And,
Uh-huh.
they were like, oh, no, I need help writing a business plan. Go to the library. They will literally take you through the whole step-by-step process. Now, I have to
Hmm.
say, with how the world has changed, that whole 9,000-page business plan is not necessarily as relevant today as it was previously. But you still
Right.
need to have a profit plan, a marketing strategy, a business plan. You still need to have it, even as an author, even as a speaker. So for
There it is.
you, what has been that, like, the lesson learned from that piece of it? The fact that you're, as the entrepreneur, as an author, you're still an entrepreneur. As a speaker, you're still an entrepreneur. What has been that lesson for you?
Well, the lesson is I call myself, and I teach others that are authors, and I call myself an authorpreneur, because and that's the mindset you have to have, that you are doing, if you choose to. And I don't the title self-publishing, I don't even use that. I'm an authorpreneur. I'm not a self-publisher, I am a authorpreneur, because you are doing everything that a entrepreneur does, because you're taking on the task of being the cover designer. You may have somebody that does it, but you should have that last word. You're the one that gives the okay for that for that cover design. You're the one that, like you just said, you got to do the marketing, you got to do the sales. You're wearing all of those hats. You've got to do the social media. You've got to do the the speaking, setting up of the speaking. You've got to deal with the printer, the vendors, setting up all of those things. So you're doing all of everything that an entrepreneur does. You have to have that mindset, whether you, like you said, whether you're a speaker, whether you're an author. And actually, if you're an author, you should be a speaker. I'm sorry. They kind of go together. they are married. You cannot be an author and not be a speaker. I'm sorry. Any author that comes to me, I said, we think that's the way we do it. You're going to have to speak somewhere. We figure out where it is that you need to be speaking, and we seek out those venues for you to be able to speak. And even, folks will say, well, I'm an introvert and I can't, I'm afraid. Well, we're going to get you out of that, because it doesn't work with being an author and just sitting there. You can't be an author, have a book and just sit there, because it's not going to sell itself. Because people have to understand that people don't buy your product, they buy you.
There it is.
They buy you. And the more familiar people are with you, the more the more they can relate to you, the more that they feel comfortable with you. And people buy from people that they feel comfortable with. That's what it is. That's indeed. You have those two. Being a speaker, being an author, you have your mind in that mindset that I have to be a speaker. And if you have to work at it too, because just getting up in front of somebody is not easy. And I even tell authors, writing is not easy either, because folks think that just because they want to talk, they want to write how they talk. And that's not necessarily always the case. You can't do that. Like, no, you can't say that way. You gotta find another way to be able to say that. You're like, no. So you have to understand that we can't always write how we talk. And then we have to, there's a way that you write something. There's a way that, now, if you're speaking and you're trying to talk about what you've written, it's a different story. That's a different way. But getting it on that paper, getting it in a book, you definitely want to make sure that it sounds right, it flows right, it looks right, all of those things, because that's what the reader is looking at. And any kind of distraction that readers have, just like speakers, any kind of thing that distracts a reader or a listener, you'll lose them. You'll lose them really quickly if they have too many distractions. Because I know for me, I'm an avid reader too, and one thing that I just turn me off. Two things turn me off when I'm reading. One is long chapters. If I have a book that has really long chapters, and I'm talking, 20, 30 pages, 45 page long chapters, I'm like, no, break that thing up. Break that having long chapters. But then if I read your book and there are a whole lot of mistakes, there's always going to be some in there. You're not going to be able to get rid of everything. Exactly. But I shouldn't keep as I'm reading through your book, find a whole lot of errors.
I shouldn't have the red pen out as I'm reading your book.
Right, exactly. I shouldn't be editing your book as I'm reading
your book for you. That's not how it works. So
right.
It's interesting you would say that, because I try something that I ingrain this in my clients is you do not edit your own book. Why? Because you end up cutting chunks out of your book that may be necessary, or maybe something that's important for somebody who is reading. But we are our own worst critic, and we literally, this is how I describe it. I love pineapples.
Okay.
I cannot cut a pineapple worth nothing. I cut the pineapple. I'm cutting off big pieces of stuff. I can't. Everybody else cuts it as nice little circles. Mine is like an octagon. I don't know what happened. That is how your book will look when it comes, if you're trying to self-edit. That's exactly how your book is going to look. It's going to look like this strange shape of something that you tried to put together, and it looked like it could have been nice, but we don't know what happened. And I said, even along the way, it's more important for you to brain dump than it is for you to try to edit it along the way. Absolutely. It's more important to get it on the paper, get it out there. Even if it sounds strange, get it out on paper, get that part done. Let the editor worry about that. That's the other thing. Again, when you think about being as an author, that you are an entrepreneur, guess what? That means we have to make the investment.
Right. Absolutely.
We have to make the investment. We have to. This is our business.
Right. 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 And those are things that when you come from it, when you come to it with that perspective, understanding that it is an investment, you understand, hey, if I'm putting my time and my effort into it, I need to make sure that it's done right. It's done in order, in an order where I can see, I see myself as that customer, and I'm giving them what it is that I would expect when I go to, whatever it is that whatever product or service that I'm getting. The same thing, you have to look at your customers, your clients or your customers the same way. Am I giving them what I expect for myself? And exactly. You would give them a disservice if you, like you said, if you cut chunks out, if you're not getting another set of eyes on it, or even with speaking. If you aren't letting somebody else kind of critique how it is that you may be speaking, so that you don't make the same mistakes over and over again, over and over again. Because we're gonna make mistakes, and we may see things that we can improve on. Because I'm always like that too. I'm my worst critic. I'm like, oh, I could have did that a little better. I should have said this, but I didn't say that. Yeah. So we're always, critiquing, and that's a great thing. Because you should always be working at your craft. You should always be working at what you do. And when you do that, you continue to get better. You get better at it. 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 But it's crucial that you make that investment to have another set of, another perspective on your product, on your service, so that people can tell you, give you their honest, and not just yes people, not your family, not your friends. There it is.
I was just about to say that. Do not get grandmama and auntie and them to read it,
because they love you, and they love you, and they might be a little soft on you. But when you get, and I'm gonna tell you, it's a difference, because when you get that referral, when you get that oh wow, I really enjoyed this, or this, your book said this to me, or your speaking did that for me, then you're like, wow, man, I really might have something here. I'm really doing something when it comes from somebody that has no idea who you are, and they've either heard you for the first time or read your book for the first time, and they give you a review, or they give you they give you feedback on it.
That's it. And listen, that means we can't listen. I'm going to be honest here. Listen. We cannot get Pookie and Ray Ray to get it done for us.
Absolutely not. They great, great because they're your family and everything like that.
I understand they're your baby cousin, and they said they want to help you,
right?
Business thing off the ground. But we gotta have a different mindset.
You gotta grow beyond that.
Do it. We can't have we gotta do better. And that's one of the things my coach always says, you just got to do better. You got to do better. You just got to do better.
And that's it.
That's it.
We should be striving to do better, and you should see that growth. Because, it's nothing wrong with starting with your friends and family, because that's what you do.
Exactly.
You should grow beyond them. They're going to take you so far. If you only want your business to go to this point, cool. That's what you do.
Right.
But if you see
yourself in a hobby,
right?
Hey, that can be
good for it, But if you're planning on growing and seeing yourself being an entrepreneur, you've got to think big, and you've got to think beyond, way beyond, the friends and family, and affecting people that have no idea who you are. They have no idea where you come from and all of those things, but they come to know who you are by the story that you tell, or the speaking engagements that you do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, this conversation has been phenomenal. I knew it was going to be amazing. That's why we had so many issues trying to get on. I knew it was going to be amazing. It's again, I love it because when we think about the male voice and just how powerful it can be and how we're hearing only a small bit of it, we're hearing a little bit here and there. But
exactly,
the strength and the power that's there can change the world. And one of the things that I said in the earlier broadcast was literally, if we could take what we need from the male voice and what we need from the female voice and combine them and marry them together, no pun intended, marry them together, look at how powerful we can be.
So,
look at how strong we can be. That's how neighborhoods are rebuilt. That's how communities are rebuilt. Families are rebuilt, is by bringing both of those voices together. Because if we're just using one voice, then something's missing.
Absolutely. And you just talked about it. You just nailed it right there, because once we begin to understand the power that we have as men, and we make our voices louder, it puts everything in order. And we as men have got to understand that until our mindset shifts, once our mindset shifts, that will and like you just said, it will shift. I guarantee anybody that's listening, I'm talking to us, if our mindset shifts, it will shift communities. It will shift the education that we get. It will shift government that we have. It will shift everything that has to do with the family. It will have, and that's been my thing for this year, 2017, is the mindset shift. Everything starts with that. Until that mind shifts and starts to think differently, nothing else can happen. Because it will always go back. It will always go back to what it knows. So once it starts to think differently, it begins to think all things new. It begins to think in a whole different way. So it's about that mindset shift, and it becomes, even as entrepreneurs, and I call it the entrepreneur shift, because we as entrepreneurs have got to shift too. We've got to be able to shift as well, to understand where we are as a business. Like we talked about, that growth. Understand where you are in that growth process, and be able to shift into that next level. Okay, I'm here. Okay, I understand where I am right now. Where is it that I'm trying to go? What's the next shift that has to happen?
Oh, did I lose you? Look, Facebook doing its own thing again, y'all. I told y'all Facebook been doing its own thing, but that's all right. So for those of you who have joined, thank you so much. For those who have come in and shared out the broadcast, we greatly appreciate it. Those who have been engaging in the conversation as well, we appreciate you. About the male voice and the power that is in the male voice, it's just been, I can't even put words to it. It's been amazing. I'm going to bring Leroy back on, if I can, to have him close out and to tell you guys where you can find him on social media. If you check the heading for this particular video on Facebook, or if you check the description for this video on YouTube, you will see all his information, how you can connect with him, what he has going on, what he has coming down the pipeline. You'll be able to reach out to him personally. That's always a great opportunity, right? So we appreciate you guys. This is another episode of Speak Easy, the Speak Easy podcast, where we talk about the behind the scenes of what it is to be a speaker or an author. Some great tidbits and tips and techniques and laughs were shared today, as well as some powerful moments. So those who are just coming on, you may want to go back and catch the replay. If you're catching this by the replay, don't forget that your replays, shares, invites, comments, they all still matter. We come back and engage with you as the listener, because guess what? This podcast would not be here if it was not for you. So for those of you that are authors and speakers that would like to be on this platform, bit.ly/Speak Easy Podcast. That's bit.ly/Speak Easy Podcast. Greatly appreciate those who have come in. Hey, Charlita. Hey, D. And as we roll out, We got some great things coming down the pipeline. For those of you that need that push to help with that pitch, bit.ly/all-snap, AWHSNAP, all lowercase, for you to get into a special webinar that's coming up next month for you to learn how to snap when it comes to your speech, how to snap when it comes to your pitch. That is what it is all about. So until next time, thank you guys, and don't forget to press it out.